Hey, what's up guys? Today I wanted to make a video showing the build that I'm playing in Throne and Liberty. And so this is a question that I've been asked a lot of times in the last days, and so I figured that I would make a video about it. And so currently I'm playing Wand and Staff, and I really like this build because in my case I try to play both DPS and healing, and so I love the fact that I can kind of do like some hybrid DPS and healing. And so depending on the situation I can choose what I want to do, and so that's what I really like about this build here. And I'm going to talk about my gear. I'm going to talk about the three main builds that I'm using, the skill builds that I'm using, and so that's kind of what it is. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the webcam so that we can see properly what's going on, and I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm doing. Okay, let's go. Okay, so as you can see right here, my CP, my combat power right here it's about 3k4 right here, and I think that's really good. I'm probably in the very end game right here, and as you can see I'm trying to build for a balanced build. As you can see I have 40 in every stats, and the reason I want to do this here is because I want to do both PvE and PvP, and so because of that I'm trying to balance all of my stats, because Staff 1 is kind of a unique build, if that makes sense, because in PvE the most important stats are dexterity and wisdom, but if you're doing PvP then you need to prioritize strength and perception. And so if you're someone that tries to do both PvE and PvP, then you kind of have to make decisions, okay? And so the decision that I took was that I would basically build a balanced build where I could do both PvE decently and PvP decently, and so this is why I'm choosing to go with a balanced build like this. So the strength gives me more health, it also gives me more damage duration, and because of that I like the fact that I'm more tanky because of it. And so dexterity, more crit, more bonus damage, wisdom, max mana, debuff duration, perception gives me hit chance and buff duration, and so this is what I'm mostly playing with. For the weapons I'm using Lycoris Covered Tome, and so I really like this tome because first of all it gives a lot of stats, it gives me a lot of wisdom and perception, so that's really cool. And I really like the effect here, the ambush, and so I really feel like this is like a no shit button. And so when you're about to die or something, both in PvE and PvP, it has a cooldown of 2 minutes, but it's really cool because when you're about to die at 20%, then you kind of vanish, if that makes sense. Okay, you kind of go stealth or whatever, and it's basically saving your life every time. And so within that 3 seconds, I'm usually able to escape, heal a bunch of swift healings, and heal up. Okay, so this is really cool. As for the staff, I'm using the staff of Ubramancer. Again, I'm mostly playing this staff because of all the stats, strength and perception. I think it's really good. And so here, my gear here, it's not entirely finished, but I'm mostly aiming for the Swirling Essence set. That's what I meant. Okay, and so here I have the head, I have the gloves, I have the shoes, and so I love the fact that I'm getting lots of wisdom, weaken chance, cooldown speed, attack range increase, crit, and so overall this set here, I love the fact that it's mostly for DPS, but I'm still able to heal. Okay, and so right here I only have 3 items of the set. But my goal at some point would be to get the chest, because the chest is really good, because this chest actually gives you dexterity, wisdom, and also heavy attack chance. And also I would be able to get the 4 set bonus, but as of right now I don't have it, and the chest is really expensive. I think it's dropping from the arch boss, one of the arch boss, so it's really rare and really expensive right now. So for now, I'm using the coat of the Executioner because I kind of like the stats on it. It gives me a little bit of strength, so that I'm able to reach 40 strength, more crit, and also more weakened chance. And so that's where I'm going with this. And here I'm using the Supreme Devotion. Basically, I think it's really good for any casters out there. More crit, mana regen, cooldown speed, those are really good. Here, the legs here, I'm using the Ebon Roar Greaves because this is mostly for being able to tank and for PvP here, okay? Since I'm doing PvP, I'm deciding to go with these legs because it allows me to be more tanky. It gives me damage reduction and melee evasion, and so I really enjoy those. And so again, the necklace here, this is good, really good for any casters. Mana regen, mana cost efficiency, and so this is really good. Everything related to mana. Bracers of Primal King. Here I have the Supreme Sapphire Dimensional Band. I also have the Ember Dimensional Band here, but ideally I would like to change it for something else because sometimes I'm missing. You see, the reason I went for this band here, the Ember Dimensional Band, is that I thought that the set was actually increasing my stamina regen, but recently I realized that it's actually decreasing the stamina regen, so I'm kind of upset about this. I don't understand why a set effect would actually reduce stats, but there it is, okay? So I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that one, but I really like the stats on it, so you know, strength and dexterity, those are really good. And so that's kind of what I think about it. And so here I have the Spectral Skulls as my belt. And yeah. And for the traits, I'm mostly optimizing for melee evasion, max health, and depending on the item, I might go for attack speed here, I might go for cooldown speed here. And you know, on the accessories I always go for max health, skill damage resistance, debuff duration, and for the rings I'll go for skill damage boost, max health, buff duration. And those are kind of my thoughts about that. And so in the long term I would probably change my chest, and I would also probably change my Ember ring here. And other than that, I think all these items are pretty good. As for my builds right now, I'm basically using 3 builds because you're only limited to 3 builds, unfortunately. I could see myself having at least 4 or 5 builds, so this is kind of annoying that we're limited that way. So I'm going to show you the 3 builds that I use the most. And so I'm going to start with the first one that I call Solo AoE. And so here, this is my build that I mostly use for, well, it basically says it, Solo AoE. And so I mostly use this build for pretty much everything that is open world, or even a little bit of PvP sometimes when there's some sort of PvP event. I might go for this build, and usually with the 3 builds that I have, this is usually the build that I'm going to change if I need a very specific build, okay? And so the idea here with these skills here, I go with the staff skills here, mostly for AoE, and so here I might go for I don't want this serial fire bombs, and so I go for full AoE, and then Infernal Wave, full damage, Chain Lightning, full damage, Judgment Lightning, full damage. I also use Ice Spear Bombardment. This is mostly for single target damage, but you know, just depending on what you want to do. And here I use Victorious Energy because sometimes, especially when I'm doing open world dungeon, open farm dungeon or whatever, sometimes I end up tanking some of the mobs. So I think Victorious Energy is a good way to tank some mobs temporarily, and then you just pop Victorious Energy and you AoE everything down, and so I think it's really useful. And sometimes I'll use Inner Peace, and yeah. Touch of Despair, again, full AoE. Swift Healing, this is one of the most important skill, I think. And I always use consecutive use, that's really important. And that's kind of my build. This is a build that I use quite often. And usually I would change Curse Explosion for something else. And so if I want more AoE, then I go for Curse Explosion. But if I want more mobility, then I might go for the Smoke Screen. Or if I need more CC, I might go for the Tomb. Or if I need more healing, then I might go for the Fountain of Life. And so it's very situational, okay? So depending on what I need, I just adapt to what is happening and what the situation, depending on what's going on with my group. And so this is kind of the build that I change depending on my needs, okay? And so ideally I would like to have more builds, but this is the build that I change according to my needs, okay? And so this is kind of what's going on with this build. And so here my second build is the one that I call PvE DPS. And this is a very single target DPS build, okay? And so usually I'm going to use this build mostly when I'm doing dungeon, especially the last boss of the dungeon, or if I'm doing secret dungeon, Gates of Infinity, or if I'm doing some sort of boss where it's very single target. And so this is the build that I'm going to use here because all of these skills are really optimized for single target. And so if I check here the staff, and you can pause the video if you want, okay? And so this is the skills that I use. I use Focus Firebomb with the mobility, Inferno Wave, full damage, Chain Lightning. It's only the first specialization here because this specialization, it basically puts an AoE at the feet of the enemy, and so it does a little bit of AoE, but this AoE is able to do some damage to even single targets, so that's really good. I'm going for Fireball damage, Fireball Barrage. Judgment Lightning, it's only the consecutive use because this is only for single target DPS. So again, also Chain Lightning, I'm not going for the damage transfer or anything. High Focus, you go for damage boost to have more damage. And for the one, you don't really use the healing that much of the one, okay? So the idea with the one is that you want to go for, again, full damage. You want to go to focus target with the Curse Explosion, more damage. You want to go with the Decaying Touch, additional damage. And Touch of Despair, more duration. And Swift Healing is basically the only support skill that I have in this build because this is kind of my way of supporting myself if I need to. And then Time for Punishment, that's an effect duration because this skill is pretty cool because it reduces the skill damage resistance on your target so that you're able to do more damage. So it's all about single target DPS. And yeah, that's what it is. The only support that you get in this build is the Swift Healing, and usually I would use it on myself if I'm about to die, or you know, you can still use it to support your friends, your group party or whatever, and so that's the way to go. But usually I try to heal myself with Vampiric Contract. And so here this passive is pretty cool because it heals you depending on the damage that you do, and so I think this is really cool. Okay, and so those are the passives that I use. And then finally the last build that I use, this is my PvE heal actually. Oh, I'm gonna change the name. It's PvE heal. And here this build is kind of a hybrid of, I do a little bit of DPS, but it's more focused on healing. And so I'm going to show that to you right here. And so I have a bunch of abilities, damaging abilities. This is mostly single target. I think the only AoE that I have on this build is Chain Lightning, where I go with some specialization for AoE. And so if I show it to you here, Focus Bomb, it's single target. Judgment Lightning, it's also single target. So those are heavy hitter. Allows you to, those are big casts that do a lot of damage. So that's why I'm going for those. Sometimes I see that I don't have it here, but sometimes if there's a lot of mob, for example, in a dungeon or something like this, then I might go for something like damage transfer to be able to do a little bit of AoE, because this build doesn't have much AoE, so it's mostly for healing, but you know, like, you're not supposed to DPS that much, but I kind of like doing DPS a little bit. So yeah, so if I continue here, I have some DPS on the wand, I focus on swift healing, and I try to have some, yeah, this build is having a little bit of more range. You know, you don't have to do it, but it's just that I love that when I'm actually healing, that I'm able to reach everybody. So you see Clay Salvation, I'm going for more radius. Same thing for Invincible Wall with target expanded. And Fountain of Light, you put everything in here. And so this build here is focused on healing. It's all about healing and reaching to your teammates with increased radius. And so this is the build that I'm going to. And one thing that I might do from time to time is that I might reduce the radius. Yeah, I might reduce the radius here, and even on the swift healing. And you might go for more damage or maybe a little bit of AoE. And so I think that can be a good thing to do as well. Yeah, you might go for example, Chain Lightning. It kind of depends on the type of content that you're using, okay? If, for example, you're doing very single target like DPS, if you're doing a world boss or something, you might go for more damage or something like this. If you're doing a dungeon, you might go for more AoE. It's very situational, okay? All these builds, like, I'm showing the builds that I'm using, but like, I always adapt to what is needed, if that makes sense, okay? And so you kind of have to think for yourself, and you know, I'm showing you everything that I do here, but I think at the end of the day, it always depends on how you want to play. And in my case, I want to be able to heal and also DPS, and so that's why I'm going for the Swirling Essence gear. I'm not going for the Ascended gear, Ascended Guardian gear, and so that's kind of what I think about that. So that's kind of my video about my build. So I hope that this video was helpful to you. If you have any question, you can leave your question below. You can leave your comments below. I will answer to everything. And that's pretty much it. Peace.